So we're going to read a book called The Great K-Pop Tree by Lynn Cherry, and we're going to read this book to talk about the changes in an ecosystem and how humans can affect ecosystems in a negative way, and how natural events can affect ecosystems in a negative way. But this book talks about how humans affect ecosystems in a negative way. All right? So this is a tale of the Amazon rainforest. So here, in this map, it shows you where the Amazon rainforest is. It's in South America. So these are animals that are in the Amazon rainforest all the way around this page here.
And there's even more insects on you can
All right. In the Amazon rainforest, it is always hot. And in that heat, everything grows and grows and grows. The top of the trees in the rainforest are called the canopy. The canopy is a sunny place that touches the sky. The animals that live there like lots of light. Colorful parrots fly from tree to tree. Monkeys leap from branch to branch. The bottom of the rainforest is called the understory. The animals that live in the understory like darkness. Their silent snakes curl around hanging vines. Graceful jaguars watch and wait. And in this steamy environment, the great K-pop tree shoots up through the forest and emerges above the canopy. This is the story of a community of animals that live in one such tree in the rainforest. Since before, the forest had been alive with sounds of squawking birds and howling monkeys. Now all was quiet as the creatures watched the two men and wondered why they had come. The larger man stopped and pointed to the great K-pop tree. Then he left. The smaller man took an axe he carried and struck the trunk of the tree. Whack, whack, whack. The sounds of the blows rang through the forest, and the wood of the tree was very hard. Chop, chop, chop. The man wiped off the sweat that ran down his face and neck. Whack, chop, whack, chop. Soon the man grew tired, down to rest at the foot of the great K-pop tree. Before he knew it, the heat and the hum of the forest had lulled him to sleep. I didn't know that I would be asleep in a forest. A boa constrictor lived in the K-pop tree. He slithered down its trunk to where the man was sleeping. He looked at the gash the axe had made in the tree. Then the huge snake slid very close to the man and hissed in his ear. Senor, this tree is a tree of miracles. It is my home where generations of my ancestors have lived. Do not chop it down. A bee buzzed in the sleeping man's ear. Senor, my hive is in this K-pop tree, and I fly from tree to tree and flower to flower, collecting pollen. In this way, I pollinate the trees and flowers throughout the rainforest. You see, all living things depend on one another. A troop of monkeys scampered down from the canopy of the K-pop tree. They chattered to the sleeping man. Senor, we have seen the ways of men. You chop down one tree, then come back for another and another. The roots of these great trees will wither and die, and there will be nothing left to hold the earth in place. When the heavy rains come, the soil will be washed away, and the forest will become a desert. A toucan, a macaw, and a cock of the rock flew down from the canopy. Senor, squawked the toucan, you must not cut down this tree. We have flown over the rainforest and seen what happens once you begin to chop down the trees. Many people settle on the land. They set fires to clear the underbrush, and soon the forest disappears. Where once there was life and beauty, only black and smoldering ruins remain. A bright and small tree frog crawled along the edge of a leaf. In a squeaky voice, he piped in the man's ear. Senor, a ruined rainforest means ruined lives, many ruined lives. You will leave many of us homeless if you chop down this great kapok tree. A jaguar had been sleeping along the branch in the middle of the tree. Because his spotted coat blended into the dappled lights and shadows of the understory, no one had noticed him. Now he leapt down and padded silently over to the sleeping man. He growled in his ear, "Senor, the kapok tree is home to many birds and animals. If you cut it down, where will I find my dinner?" Porcupine swung down from branch to branch and whispered to the man, "Senor, do you know what we animals and humans need in order to live? Oxygen. And Senor, do you know that trees produce oxygen? If you cut down the forest, you will destroy that which gives us all life." Several anteaters climbed down the kapok tree with their young clinging to their backs. The unstriped anteater said to the sleeping man, "Senor, you are chopping down this tree with no thought for the future, and surely you know that what happens tomorrow depends on what you do today. The big man tells you to chop down a beautiful tree. He does not think of his own children, who tomorrow must live in a world without trees." A three-toed sloth began climbing down from the canopy when the man first appeared. Only now did she reach the ground. Plodding ever so slowly over to the sleeping man, she spoke in her deep and lazy voice, "Senor, how much is beauty worth? Can you live without it? If you destroy the beauty of the rainforest, on what would you feast your eyes?" A child from the Yanomamo tribe who lived in the rainforest knelt over the sleeping man. He murmured in his ear, "Senor, when you awake, please look upon all of us with new eyes." The man stood with a start. Before him stood the rainforest child, and all around him staring were the creatures who depended upon the great kapok tree. What wondrous and rare animals they were. The man looked about and saw the sun streaming through the canopy. Spots of bright light glowed like jewels amidst the dark green forest. Strange and beautiful plants seemed to dangle in the air, suspended from the great kapok tree. The man smelled the fragrant perfume of their flowers. He felt the steamy mist rising from the forest floor, but he heard no sound, for the creatures were strangely silent. The man stood and picked up his axe. He swung back his arm as though to strike the tree. Suddenly he stopped. He turned and looked at the animals and the child. He hesitated. Then he dropped the axe and walked out of the rainforest. So the author Lynn Cherry wrote a letter to you. It says, "Dear readers, I wrote The Great Kapok Tree to let the world know what happens to the rainforest creatures and to the entire planet when rainforests are destroyed. I hope that after reading this book, you will help save the rainforest. The Great Kapok Tree is about the Amazon rainforest, a tropical rainforest, but we have a temperate rainforest in the Pacific Northwest of the United States that we must protect too." All right, with your science notebooks out, I'm going to give you an organizer here that talks about the natural events that affect the ecosystem and the human events that affect an ecosystem. You're going to glue this in your notebook and we're going to go over these events together. We talked about a human event that can affect the ecosystem. What was the human event in the Great Kapok Tree? Ace. Yeah, chopping down trees or logging or construction. That is a human event that can affect and change ecosystems. So we're going to look at all these human events right here. What do you think this one right here is? Pollution. We pollute the air daily. We pollute the air with the cars that we drive. We pollute the air with us in our factories. And when we're manufacturing and making things, we pollute the air. These huge smokestacks go into the air and it changes ecosystems. So on your organizer, I want you to write pollution where it says human activities. Logging is another activity, a human activity, and that's the one that was present in the Great Kapok Tree. That's the one that was present in the Great Kapok Tree, logging. They were going to cut down that Great Kapok Tree so that they could clear that rainforest area. The next one here is hunting and poaching. If we hunt these animals for sport, poaching is hunting for sport. Not hunting just to eat, because you need meat to eat. Hunting for sport, meaning I want this big, huge elk on my mantle, over my mantle, and I'm going to have it stuffed, and its antlers are going to be hanging over my fireplace just for the fun of it. This changes ecosystems, because if we overhunt these animals, then they're not going to be enough present in that ecosystem to sustain the food chains. So on the other side, we're going to look at natural events. We have earthquakes. These happen naturally. These happen when our tectonic plates begin to move. They either collide, they go under and submerge. They submerge under each other, and that creates a shock wave in the ground. A tsunami. These are natural events. An earthquake can cause a tsunami. A tsunami is like a huge wall of water. It's like a wave of water coming in, crashing on a shore. A drought. A drought. That's a good question. What's a drought? A drought is when you go without rain for an extended period of time. Not like a couple of days, like months without rain. That can happen to an ecosystem, and if your ecosystem needs a lot of rain to support its wildlife, to support the plants, and to support the animals, and you go without the rain, what do you think is going to happen to the plants?
Die.
They'll die. Then what happens to the animals that eat those plants?
They'll die.
They'll die. Then what happens to the animals that eat those animals?
They die.
They'll die.
Cannibalism.
It's like a domino effect. A hurricane. Hurricane is a natural event. And a flood. A flood. You have 4 there. Now that you have this organizer, changes in the ecosystem, now that you have that in your notebook, what we're going to do is we're going to work on changes in an ecosystem and how we can help ecosystems from these human activities. Now, we can't control the natural events. We can't control plate tectonics and us having an earthquake or a tsunami or a flood or anything like that. But we can control not cutting down or not excessively cutting down trees. We can control the amount of pollution that we put out there in the air and in the environment. We can control not poaching animals and hunting just for sport. Those are things we can do. So you are going to work in a group. Create the Great Kapok Tree book. So what you're going to do, is you're going to research rainforest animals, tropical rainforest animals here. And you are going to create together pages in a book. So the objective is for you to illustrate an animal digitally, and then you're going to illustrate what the animal would say to not cut down the kapok tree. So they gave you a lot of different examples in the book. The anteater, the child who was from the village, the snake, the boa constrictor. They gave you the sloth, the jaguar. There were a lot of different animals in there. Listen, there were a lot of different animals in that book that we could use, but I want you to go and I want you to research tropical rainforest animals. You're going to illustrate an animal right here, and this is the animal speech bubble, what the animal would say to the senor, to the mister, who's going to cut down the kapok tree. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay? This is housed in your Google Classroom under Great Kapok Tree Activity, okay? So everybody's science Google Classroom is where you can find this. Do we understand what we're doing? Do we understand how the changes in an ecosystem can relate to our daily lives? Yes, a drought can reflect and affect our daily lives. There was a drought a couple of years ago and people couldn't water their lawns. You could only use a certain amount of water, like to wash your car and things like that. That affects us in our daily lives. Those things that we looked at here, these human events are affecting our ecosystems, which thus affect us. Does that make sense? If we overcut down these trees, if we cut down too many trees, then we are not going to have the oxygen that we need because the trees produce oxygen as a byproduct. We need that. We need oxygen to breathe. Animals need oxygen to breathe as well.
We're gonna do space now. Oh, cool. Okay, bro. No, not.
It just disintegrates. It's kind of in the floor.
No. Yeah. Let's do. Yeah, no, not upside down. What do we do? What do we do again? What did he say? Is this 12 or 18? Okay, we can take. Please don't cut down our car. No, I got it.
Where did the picture go?